You're listening to the Jan Price Show, all about movies, and today my guest is Academy Award nominated and Emmy-winning director and documentary filmmaker Connie Field. Welcome to the show today, Connie.
Thank you for having me, Jan.
It's a pleasure. We're going to be talking about your award-winning documentary entitled Democracy Noir. And before we really do a deep dive into it, would you please let our listeners know a little bit what documentary, I'm sorry, democracy, my tongue is not working yet this morning, Democracy Noir is all about?
Well, Democracy Noir tells the story of three amazing women, at least I find them that way. One is a journalist, the other is a member of parliament, and the other is a nurse who's a real social activist. And it tells the story. They bring us into life in Hungary over the last 12 years under Viktor Orbán, who came to power in 2010. And what's amazing about what we see, especially in our world today,
Right.
is that everything that they were coping with, that Orban was doing, is a mirror to what's happening to us in America right now. I started the film actually in 2014.
Wow.
That's the first time I was in. They have a wonderful square called Liberty Square in Hungary. And I was walking in from one end of the square past the Ronald Reagan statue. They really like Ronald Reagan because he helped bring the Soviet Union down and deliver, set the stage so Hungary would be delivered from being basically controlled by the Soviet Union. And so anyway, I walked upon this statue that it was like four empty columns surrounded by police and people demonstrating. So I immediately got curious, what in the world is going on? And what was happening is that statue was symbolic of Orban rewriting history. And the statue symbolized how Hungary was under the control of Germany during World War II, as opposed to being its ally, which is what really happened.
Wow.
So, and at that time, Orban was already going about changing the universities, changing the schools in terms of what they were allowed to teach, much like what Trump is trying to do now with our own universities. I mean, the parallels are just really uncanny.
I know. It really is. And you started this, you said in 2014?
Yeah, I started filming then, and I filmed a lot, but it actually was not possible to get the film funded then. Hungary was on no one's radar list then. I mean, even in Europe. And so I restarted filming, in like 2021 is when I started again, and I brought on a producer from Denmark, and it's together that we got this film made. And her name was Sigurd Diker. She is a great producer.
You had trouble though, you finding that producer from the research that I did, because the producer you wanted to have in Hungary originally was a little nervous about becoming, was it a producer that was difficult for her to come to work on this film because she gets her funding from the Orban government. Is that true?
I did have a Hungarian producer I wanted to do the film with, to do it with somebody in Hungary. And yes, she eventually just backed off because she does get funding from the government through their film institute and through their television. Yeah.
So when you started this again in 2021, none of this was really on the radar about what was about to happen in our country. I mean, we didn't, I mean, later on we discovered this, obviously, but but we had no idea in 2021 all the dismantling of our government now in the US was about to happen. So when you were doing this and as you finished it, were you surprised about how our government is following the Orban playbook?
Um, no, I wasn't surprised. And it's because the right wing of in this country, okay, like Tucker Carlson, was a huge fan of Orban. He went to Hungary. He did a whole week of broadcasting from Hungary.
Mm.
A lot of intellectuals from the right wing in our country have also studied at Orban's Danube Institute. Okay, so this has been going on for quite a while. Just so you know, I was very aware of the connections. Yeah.
So it didn't obviously surprise you. So what was when you were doing this, did you at any time during the filming of this feel that you might be shut down? That somebody might decide, hey, we don't want this kind of documentary made? Was that ever a threat? Did you have any threats made against you?
Could you hold on one second? Do you mind?
No.
Quick second, just my computer isn't charging and I don't want it to go out.
Okay.
So,
That's important.
yes, that's very
We do
important.
need to have that working.
Yeah. Yeah.
Technical issues. Sometimes we
Yes,
have them.
exactly. Yeah.
I have
Well,
had them.
okay, it's okay.
I have had them myself. So,
Yeah.
all right, great. So, did you feel threatened at all during the time that you were filming this?
No, and I also was not worried for the protagonists in the film because Orban has so much control, okay, over election laws, over all kinds of things, that he's not threatened. He's not threatened by protests. Of the majority, of course, happens in Budapest. Budapest is like another country in Hungary. And Jan, have you ever been to Budapest?
I have not, but after seeing this film, I would like to go for
You
sure.
should. It is one of the most beautiful cities in the world,
It
actually.
looks like it's
And
beautiful.
I've been to lots of them, and love Budapest. It's amazing. So, no, he controls election laws so much so that I mean, it's amazing the stories about it. He, okay, there is a diaspora of Hungarians in the countries surrounding Hungary because Hungary used to be much larger. They're in the Ukraine, they're in Serbia, they're in Romania. They vote in the Hungarian election. Orban gives lots of grants to all of this
Mm.
diaspora. They all vote for Orban and they can mail in their ballots. On the other side, because a lot of young people have gone to Western Europe to work, okay? About 900,000 Hungarians are in Western Europe. So if they want to vote, what do they have to do? Let's say you're living in Manchester, England. You have to go to London to the Hungarian embassy and stand in line and vote. And often that embassy that day happens to close at 3 o'clock.
Mm.
So he lets these people vote. He prevents these people from voting.
Mm.
You know,
Interesting.
he even does things like what he changed immediately the election laws, which were when an area, okay, a district got voted, okay, and he got 51% and the opposition got 49%, then the opposition would keep that 49% and he would get his 51%. It's like our electoral college is different places, right?
Yes.
So he changed that. So anyone who wins 51% gets all of the votes. So this is how he maintains his two-thirds majority in parliament. And the two-thirds is very important because, like our country, Hungary made a mistake in their new constitution of 1990. They had in this constitution, if you had two-thirds majority in parliament, if a party had that, they could change the constitution.
Mm.
This is what allowed Orban, as the first party that gotten the two-thirds, in 2011, he rewrote everything to give him complete power. And he kept up that two-thirds majority by what I just explained. And what he would do in an area where he wasn't sure to win the 51%, he has another area where he's guaranteed to do that, and he buses people in from the other area and has them vote in the place where he's not as sure to win that. And he changes the law at whim. So it's pretty phenomenal. And it's, if, and we're headed, unfortunately, in the same direction, if not even worse, because he's a lot saner than what we're facing today. So it's a bit different.
It
And
is. So let's talk about, and we'll go back to this a little bit more, but let's talk about the three women that you chose to highlight because they are so courageous and their stories are parallel to a lot of things that are going on here in this country too. Except I feel like the fewer people over there are willing to march. Well, it looked like there was a lot of people in those marches and everything, but stand up to Orban. We're trying to do the same thing here. But let's talk about the heroines in this film, the three that you chose.
okay, well, Timio Sabo is quite a
Okay, you froze up, but hopefully you'll come right back.
that or less than that. The same year that Orban came into
Can
power.
you go back? You froze up a little bit, Connie. So just go back to the beginning of what you were saying.
Okay, Timia Sabo, who is now a member of parliament, first became a member of parliament at like her late 20s or something in 2010, exactly the same year as Orban. And her vision and dreams were to bring in more sustainability, to work around human rights, and all of these things that she had dreams about being able to help Hungarians with. And also an interest in making politics be something that people really participate in. They don't just leave it up to the politicians to what's going to get done in the country. And she's faced immediately with a real roadblock to anything she wants to do. And she just spends her time fighting everything that he's putting through their parliament. And she's very, very feisty. She's amazing. She's extraordinarily articulate. She's really like an attack dog. I mean, she's very tiny. She's very, very tiny. So, when I ran across her, I knew she's just absolutely perfect to tell that part of the story because I wanted it from someone who's actually in the government, okay, to
Hmm.
get that perspective on what's going on and that close commentary about what's going on inside there. Okay, and Nico, who is the nurse and very much an activist, I met her actually in 2014 around the monument that people were trying
Okay.
to stop, which they did stop for 6 months, and then Orban in the middle of the night came and finished it. But anyway, so I met Nico there. She was there with her uncle, and we just became Facebook friends. So I just always was keeping up with her and what was going on in Hungary, through her all these years. And one thing that's important to say, I'll step back, is the reason I did this film is because my husband is Hungarian. Okay, and so therefore, we've been going there almost every year since 1990. So we had a real inside view about what's going on, and he could translate for me. I don't speak Hungarian. It's a very unusual language. Anyway, so Nico, I've just been following all this time, and I just loved her feistiness and the fact that she also gives us another perspective from someone just living in the society. And her family, her mother was very pro-Orban. So
I
it was
know.
a very interesting perspective
Right.
from her point of view. And then right before I was going to shoot, I said, "Oh my goodness, I must have a journalist on this journey." you know. And I spoke to a bunch on Zoom and then chose Babette. And Babette was absolutely wonderful. And she and I sort of became partners, really. I mean, like I would, do something for our film, okay, like have to go to the countryside to see what people in the countryside felt about Orban, because that's where he gets his support. And she took us on that journey. Then she used the footage I shot, which I gave her for a report on her news organization about an aspect they were interested in. So we actually worked together. Or I would tell her, like, I must have a way for people to understand how this propaganda works in Hungary. And so she came up with a show that she would do for the network she worked for, which is called Partisan, which is online. And that's how we worked together. It was really, really fantastic. She was great.
So let's backtrack a little bit because all of the media, the TV stations and radio, are controlled by the government.
Mhm, mhm.
And so she really had a hard time because she was in working in that environment in that field for a long time and then had a hard time to staying in it because of it became the propaganda machine, as you say. So you follow that a little bit in her of her journey, but how hard was it for her to land this role that she's in now? Because are they trying to suppress anybody who speaks truth to power, or basically?
Well, they are, but the media got taken over first, obviously the public media, which the government has, and also all the private media, which there was a lot in Hungary, television stations that Babette had worked on and been a reporter on. And just eventually, what would happen is that businessmen with close ties to Orban, allied with Orban, would buy out that newspaper, buy out that TV station, buy out that, and then it would all be the same. And this happened to Babette, so she had to jump from job to job to job. But she'd been a journalist since about 2010 herself and won prizes, and she was a very good journalist and also known. So she just sort of had to leap from job to job, and now is on a place called Partisan, which is on the internet because a lot of the independent media migrated to the internet. Okay, and there's a lot of independent media on the internet, but unfortunately, it gets listened to primarily from people from Budapest. And Budapest is, as I said before, like a different country in Hungary. Um, and luckily, it's 20% of the population, so it's not so small. But and so she was able to do that. She was a very well-respected journalist, and so she was able to get jobs as these new entities, sort of formed on the internet.
What let's go back a little bit because your husband, you said, is Hungarian. How does he feel about this, about Orban and what's happening in his home country?
Oh, he's appalled.
I can imagine he is, but does he have
Oh, and he's of another generation who lived through all the oppressive times in Hungary. Through world, he was a little baby in World War II, and when Hungary was allied, with Germany, and they had their own, sort of SS in Hungary, and through the communists taking over Hungary, and all of that. And he escaped in 56, which is a year that lots of people did, 2% of the population. He was very lucky because he was in high school, but he went to a special high school for classical musicians. So when he got to Geneva, they're very good to him.
Mhm,
He
mhm.
got, scholarships to study at the music academies there and in Vienna for 10 years. So he's very appalled by what's going on and very upset about it. And we have dear friends, really dear friends, who vote for Orban. They vote for him.
It's just like in our country, I have very dear friends too who have voted, and you kind of go, okay, I don't understand. But anyhow, and I've just chosen to try to save, keep the friendship and not
Well,
talk politics.
actually, that's what we've done too. And a large thing in Hungary is that the one thing he's done that's been good is come up with a family policy where he supports families. Okay, because he wants to have Hungarians grow instead of needing immigrant labor, which everybody needs. Okay,
Right.
so it's not working, but this is what he's trying to do. And, this friend who I've known since he was a child and seen him grow up, and his family is getting support from Orban. But the support is tied to your income level. You have to be a certain income level to get this. If a woman has four babies, she gets exempt from income tax for the rest of her life, etc. And it's really affected things. When we were in Hungary in 2014, all the cab drivers were against Orban. This time in 2022, they were all for Orban because their families were all being supported.
Wow. Wow.
Okay, and so it's that kind of thing. People have real, some concrete reasons. And also the opposition, and this is our problem here too, has not come up with a candidate who could really challenge him, though there is one now, but I'll say that at the end.
Okay. And that's the parallels, as I said, watching this is why I want everybody to see Democracy Noir, because it's very eye-opening to see how the dominoes got put into play, and everything started to fall, and that same thing is happening exactly today. I mean, it's just so parallel. It's mind-boggling actually, and rather depressing, but we're going to persevere, I hope.
Oh,
Yes,
and but to add to that, to not be um, depressing, is that the Hungarians are incredibly, resilient. They have continued to demonstrate, they've continued to fight all along, all along.
good.
Okay, and now there's a potential change that can happen because there's a new party that got formed. Somebody who quit Orban's party is one of the leaders of that party. The last time they had these huge celebrations of, a holiday in Hungary, and that's when Orban buses everybody in from the country, and you have these huge crowds. The crowd of the opposition was bigger than Orban's. In
Okay.
and they also had, because they were able to elect a new mayor of Budapest in 2019, who was part of the opposition. Before it was all controlled by Orban. And recently, Orban banned pride parades. They were against the law to do them. He banned them. They had 200,000 people out on the streets on Pride Day in Hungary, led by this mayor, and Orban could do nothing. So the people are there. So when
Right, right.
opportunity arises, they just barrel ahead. And that's an important lesson for us because you would think that you would just get overwhelmed and depressed in Hungary and everything you're trying to do isn't working, but they keep at it. And
Right.
that's an important lesson for us. And
Yes.
I find it exhilarating and really it gives me strength to keep doing that. So that's actually a good aspect to the film also.
Yes. That's wonderful. Well, you said you had some good news about somebody who maybe we're at the end here, Connie, that you said is coming up who could become a good opposer of what's going on. Is that the mayor?
Yeah, it's not the mayor.
Oh,
It's a man who's called Peter Magyar, and he's used to be in Orban's party. He quit Orban's party. Now he's in the leadership of this new party called TISA. Okay, and he's actually been going in the countryside, which is very important. And he's got tremendous support, and he's really, it's really neck and neck. Now, we do not know how Orban's going to react to this. I mean, Orban did try to get all the alternative news shut down by making a law that nobody can accept any funding outside of Hungary. That includes the EU. Okay, and
Mm,
a lot of these internet stations are supported that way. So it's like attacking your nonprofits, which is what got done in Russia, and they got totally closed down, which, there's been talk about here.
right.
It's another strategy, but he hasn't moved on that yet, even though he's threatened that. Okay. So we will see, but, hope is rising.
Yes, we have to keep the hope. You're totally 100% right. We can't pull the covers over our heads, which sometimes we want to do, but we can't. We have to just keep plugging along and doing what we can do as, people as Americans and saving our democracy, the same as the people of Hungary are trying to do for themselves. So it's a wonderful document. It's very timely. It couldn't have been more timely. I always find it amazing when people work on documentaries for years and the time they come out, it's the absolute perfect time for them to be shown and screened. And speaking of that, where can people see Democracy Noir?
Well, it's opening in theaters. It'll be in New York on September 5th. The run will start September 5th. It's at the Village East. You can get tickets now. It's going to be in Los Angeles starting September 19th for a run there. You can also get tickets to that. It's at the Monica Theater and in many, many other cities around the country.
Great. We'll put if there's a website, we'll put that in our social media so people can click on that and see where Democracy Noir is playing so they can, if it's playing near them, they can get their tickets through that. So we'll make sure people know where it's being shown. So I hope you have great success with this film. I really do, and people should see it for sure.
Thank you very much. I hope that too. And I find these women, the three women who tell this story, very inspiring.
They are. They really truly are. And for that alone, we need inspiration more than ever. So thank you so much, Connie. It was such a pleasure to have you on the show
Oh,
today.
it's wonderful to meet you too.
Thank you.